There's been quite a growth in paralegals that have started their own business. I mean, we have a lot of our members who are police station representatives. And also now you don't have to be a practicing solicitor to be a partner in a law firm. So we also have some of our members who have gone on to be partners in law firms.
Welcome to the Legal Navigator podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca from Law Training Centre. Today, we are joined by a special guest speaker, Jane Robson, CEO of the National Association of Licensed Paralegals, known as NALP. Jane's career is truly inspiring and impressive. Starting off as a secretary PA, she worked her way up to becoming a financial service compliance manager. Now with over a decade of experience as a responsible officer for Ofcall and other regulatory bodies, she's leading NALP, making a significant impact in the legal sector. In this episode, Jane will give us more information about NALP's background and qualifications, as well as career paths for paralegals and any tips for people starting or growing in this field. But before we get started, thank you so much for joining us today, Jane. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Wonderful. So if you could just start off by sharing with our listeners just a story about how NALP was formed and founded.
Well, NALP was founded in 1987, so nearly 38 years ago, and by John Stacey Hibbert. And he'd been working as what was then called a managing clerk, which tended to be what paralegals do these days, that they did the legal research and things like that back then. And he'd been to America, and he recognised that paralegals had been established out there for about 30 years, and just how much they were more respected, etc., than, say, the managing clerks and everything were here. And he kind of brought the term paralegal across to the UK, and he set up what was then the National Association of Paralegals. And his mission was to just bring them up to a recognised standard and to ensure that they gained the respect that particular profession was actually due, and to be seen as the integral part of the legal profession that they are. So we've sort of carried that on, really. We became the National Association of Licensed Paralegals a few years after he set us up, when people were asking, well, what if we are offering our services direct to clients? Can you give us some kind of recognition that we've been checked by yourselves and all that? And so he set up the license to practice, which those who want to deliver or offer their services to the general public, they can apply for a license to practice if they're a member of NALP.
Wonderful. So how would you say NALP has grown and adapted since you took over as CEO?
I think I'm just kind of building on the foundations that John Stacey Hibbert and later Amanda Hamilton, when she took over from John, had already laid down. And it's just about being aware of the changes in the legal sector itself and making sure that you're moving with the times and that NALP isn't kind of left behind, because so much has changed. In the last 10 years, it's almost unrecognisable, so it's very important that we stay relevant. We've done some things such as ensuring I'm part of things like the cross-regulatory forum. So I'm discussing with other members of the legal sector, people from like the Bar Association or the SRA and the conveyances, licensed conveyances, and all those, both regulated and non-regulated areas of the legal sector, and representatives from them. It's really good to get their feedback and also to ensure that we are aligned with the rest of the legal sector.
Right. It's good you touched on that point, because I was just about to ask, how NALP has responded to changes in legal professions, specifically with the Legal Aid, Sentencing and Punishment of Offenders Act and the decrease in legal aid as well. So it would just be good to find out how specifically you've responded to those changes.
Well, one of our main things has always been to ensure that there's access to justice at a reasonable cost. And in a lot of ways, especially with the almost total eradication, let's be honest, of legal aid. I mean, it's so tiny, the amount of legal aid that's available out there these days. And so paralegals offering their services direct to litigants in person has been invaluable because they are able to do it at a much lower cost than the more traditional legal services providers, such as solicitors and barristers and what have you. There's been quite a growth in paralegals that have started their own business. I mean, we have a lot of our members who are police station representatives and things like that. So they will be the ones that get called up at 2 o'clock in the morning because somebody has been arrested and they're entitled to somebody being there. We have another, lots of other areas, wills and probate, all those sorts of things. They get covered an awful lot by paralegal firms. And also now you don't have to be a practicing solicitor to be a partner in a law firm. So we also have some of our members who have gone on to be partners in law firms, which I think is brilliant. So yes, it's just a case of ensuring that our members are aware of any changes, that when there are consultations, we respond to them, and we also ensure that our members are aware of those consultations so that they can respond directly should they want to. But we tend to respond sort of as their representative.
Yeah. Wonderful. So could you share just a bit more about your own background and how that's shaped your approach to leading now?
I suppose it's quite funny because I'm not a lawyer. I've not worked in law. My background is in compliance and financial services originally. Originally it was as a secretary stroke PA, and I just worked for somebody who saw something in me. He was one of the executives at what was then HBOS or the Halifax in the compliance. And he actually persuaded the HBOS and the senior executives there to allow me to train as a compliance manager, even though I didn't have a degree, which was their standard. And I think that has really shaped me and how I look at things as being, there are different paths into a lot of professions. There isn't just a one size fits all. People come to this at different stages of their life. They find what suits them. They find an interest perhaps later in life. We don't always know what we want to do when we're 16 or 18 years old and we're choosing our A-levels or what we're going to do at university or whatever. We don't always know. And sometimes life isn't like that as well. Sometimes life dictates that it's a slightly different path. But we all have something to bring to the table, and we should be allowed to, and it shouldn't just be dictated on whether or not we have a particular piece of paper from a particular institute to be able to go forward.
Brilliant. So just for the listeners who are listening right now and just completely unfamiliar with NALP, just because there are so many different regulators out there, is it okay for you to just share a bit more specifically about what NALP does today and its specific role in supporting the legal sector?
We are what's called a voluntary regulatory authority and professional membership body. What that means is our members, when they join us, they agree to be bound by our code of ethics. Now, the code of ethics and conduct, it says what they must do to ensure that they are not bringing the legal sector into disrepute, they are not bringing paralegals into disrepute, and it is also aligned with similar codes of conduct and ethics that like the SRA have, or the BSB, or whatever. So we are fairly aligned across there to ensure that we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. I hate cliches like that, but it fits for this particular thing. We're all on the same page on this. We're all aiming to give the best possible service to the clients, whether that be because we're part of a traditional law firm or the paralegal on their own. We also provide qualifications that are specific to paralegals. Now, the reason that we've done them in that way is so they cover things like research. They can be general, but they can also be subject specific. And it means that paralegals have somewhere to go that can do vocational qualifications. They can do them more at their own pace. They can do them in a way that suits them because their centre may, like LTC, I mean, that you do distance learning, so people can really study at their own pace. And we provide all the learning materials, and we do all of the assessments and everything for that. That means because they're all regulated by Ofqual, so the same as regulate A levels and O levels and all the rest of it, they have to be very high standard, and then they get recognised by law firms and other educational institutes when they're looking to move on, if they want to move on. But also it means that those that are maybe working in legal departments within firms and things like that can gain a qualification that might not otherwise be there, that is suitable for their role, that's in that niche.
The demand for paralegals is growing. I think it was recently reported that there's over 200,000 paralegals in the UK. That
Yes.
probably significantly changed since then. But why do you think that the roles of paralegals are such in demand? And why would you say paralegals are essential in today's legal field?
Oh, they're absolutely essential. In law firms themselves, paralegals have always been really important because at the end of the day, they tend to be the ones that are doing the work. So the solicitor is the one that is signing them off, but let's be honest, the paralegals are the ones that are doing very often the lion's share of the work. I won't say always, but very often.
Yeah.
And they will do the research. They will, if they're working in conveyancing, they'll go and do all the land searches. They'll make sure all the packs and everything are together. They will do the liaison and make appointments and things like that. So all of that is very often undertaken by a paralegal. So that's within a law firm. You then have a lot of areas of law that now use more paralegals. You've got probate research. That's almost entirely paralegals because that's what they're doing. They're researching, but they have to be able to do it and have a good knowledge and understanding of the law, and probate law in particular, to make sure that they're following all the rules, making sure that people are leaving behind is not just going into the government's coffers, and they're actually finding the rightful heirs of these estates. You then have, wills and probate planning, and a lot of that is being done by paralegals because it makes it more affordable for people to be able to do that than to go into the traditional solicitor. Since we don't have legal aid, etc. anymore, you also find family law, employment tribunals, civil litigation. where if someone's being sued or they want to sue someone because of their owed money, or someone is claiming they owe them money, then they need someone to be able to support them in going through all the processes. Now, whilst the paralegal can't advocate for their client in court, they don't have a right of audience. They can apply for it, but it's not guaranteed. And it's case specific. It's not like if you apply once to a particular court and it's granted and you get it. That's not how that works. It has to be case specific. But it still means that they are able to explain what all the court documents mean. They can go through it with the litigant in person, and they can sort of make it more approachable, more friendly, more understandable for them. So they're not being bamboozled by some of the legal jargon that is in these things that most people that are engaged in this won't understand. You know, they'll suddenly get a court summons. They don't know what it's about. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been a witness in court, but I have, and it's terrifying.
Oh dear.
It can be really terrifying. You know, so I do think that paralegals are absolutely essential. And that's before we get into the fact that an awful lot of larger firms now and councils, etc., are having their an in-house legal department.
Mhm.
And a lot of paralegals work in them. We have paralegals that are working in the fashion industry. They're working for football teams. They're working, you know, Manchester United and Arsenal. And, you know, we have members that are all over the place doing lots and lots of different roles in different areas and business sectors. It's fascinating just how far and wide it is. And then, of course, you've got like citizens advice bureaus and other charities and things that also rely on people who have an understanding of the law that can offer their services free of charge, or, you know, at a much lower rate.
So how does NALP advocate for the value of paralegals in the legal system?
Put out a lot of articles in various legal and business press. We average, I think, 2 or 3 articles a month that are going out. Our patron, the old CEO, Amanda Hamilton, does a lot of articles because her background is law. I've done some on some more regulatory side aspects of the law and of the qualifications. We do an awful lot of that. We, as I say, we also speak to the other regulators in the legal sector, and we make sure that our members, everyone that's a paralegal, is being seen. And of course, we introduced the National Paralegal Day, and we set that up so that we have a day every year to celebrate the role of paralegals.
So on the note of NALP membership, can you just explain just an overview of the benefits of being a member of NALP?
Being a member of NALP, obviously, all of our learners become affiliate members, and that is very clearly the trainee level, as it were, of our membership offering. We have paralegal technicians, which is for those that have done the level 3 paralegal apprenticeship or one of our level 3 qualifications, one of the NALP level 3 qualifications. We then have the associates, which the paralegal technician membership, you can have ptech.nalp, which you can put after your name, which indicates that you're a member of us and you're a paralegal technician. Associate is a.nalp after their name. Again, it's automatic recognition that you are part of a professional body. So there's that all recognition there. There's also the membership benefits. We have various discounts and arrangements with organisations. So we have arrangements with like Simply Legal and things like that, that we put out the adverts for the roles that are out there for paralegals. So our members that are looking for roles, they can get them directly through our social media and through the portal. We also do webinars on a monthly basis. We do 10 a year, so we only take 2 months off a year. And that covers some advice on getting a role as a paralegal, on how to apply for a role, what sort of roles there are out there, what areas of business. We'll have guest speakers on various areas of business, as well as we have some that are specifically on our qualifications and what our examiners are looking for, and how to pass a qualification, etc., and what's coming up next. Also, all members get the opportunity to have a one-to-one with either our patron, Amanda, so they can speak to her for half an hour and on a one-to-one basis, and really get a good grounding and hone down the questions they want to ask for them personally. So whilst there's all this general advice, if they want specific advice, they can actually speak to us.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, we try and be there because we're only a small organisation. We do try and be there. It's quite funny if I answer the phone and they say, "Who am I speaking to?" I go, "Jane Robson, the CEO." They go, "Pardon?" And it's not because we do. We're if the administrator is off or anything like that, then I'm answering it. It's fine. And holding an NALP regulated qualification, because they're regulated, they're on the off-call register, that provides anybody they're showing it to that this is a bona fide qualification. It sets it above from those that are not regulated by off-call, that are I don't want to say that they're all poor quality, but a lot are poor quality. And a lot of them take 4 hours to do what they call a level 3 qualification or something, and instead of the 360 hours that it would take them to do a proper qualification, So it is very different having a regulated qualification that has to fulfill all of the criteria that Ofqual lay down and is recognised, not just in this country, it's recognised abroad as well. We have a lot of students abroad.
Yeah.
So yes, I always advocate for regulated qualifications, and not just because my job is compliance, but because I do believe in them. I believe it's a way to set the standard. And you mentioned the National Paralegal Register as well. If our members have the option to put their details on there and even have a contact button. So if they are working for themselves and someone is looking for a paralegal, they can go on our website, go to the National Paralegal Register, and they can find a paralegal via that.
Right. Really good to see the hands-on support that your organisation provides. But just wanted to touch on further with the qualifications that you mentioned, just the new structure and the progression. I believe NALP has introduced recently the new level 3 certificate for paralegal technicians.
Yeah.
New level 4 diploma qualifications. So could you walk us through just the key changes with those qualifications?
Yeah, the level 3, we previously offered 3 different levels of level 3 different size qualifications. When they're called award, certificate or diploma, that indicates the size of the qualification.
How many units there's?
Not how many units, it's how many hours it takes. Total qualification time it takes. Whilst, when the level 3 was first brought out in 2011, and things have moved on a lot, as we've said. The legal sector has moved on, but not just the legal sector, but also what people are looking for in a legal qualification. and what they can do with their qualifications. So when they started talking about bringing the SQE in for the solicitor's qualifying exam, and that wasn't going to be, it was no longer going to be that you had to have a particular law degree and to be able to go on. You could do something that was just, or not just, but that was the equivalent of. We wanted to ensure that our level 3 qualification remained a really good foundation for anybody that wanted to get into law, and was a good solid knowledge of what the English legal system was, what the ethics and professional conduct should be, law of contract, because of course most things end up having to touch on some form of contract, most things in law. And then also civil litigation and dispute resolution, because again, most things in law come around to some form of dispute resolution and litigation of some description. So they seem to be the 4 most important areas. We also, because we became an endpoint assessment organisation, wanted to ensure that it would support and complement the standard that is in the level 3 paralegal apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So people that are doing that could take a level 3 qualification alongside. That wasn't going to be wasted. There wasn't sort of information in there they didn't need for their apprenticeship or anything like that. It was completely complementary. And also because the standard is a good standard for a level 3, the standard that was put together, because that was put together by employers and training providers and endpoint assessment organisations. So it is a very good standard to keep to. It means having the certificate at level 3. We do have the single subjects, which I'll come on to in a minute. It means that because of that, we could change all the assessment, the ways we did the assessment. We brought in multiple choice questions that were done remotely that suits that level. And it also changes it because we have to recognise that we've got things like AI and all that sort of thing. And like most awarding organisations, you have to keep an eye out for people misusing AI, which they can't really do on a multiple choice question paper. But also we do have assignments for 3 of the units, but they are problem-based. Again, AI doesn't do very well with those. But that also provides them with an opportunity to show that they understand what they've learned. So it's not just rote learning. They understand what they've learned and they're able to apply it to a specific scenario. So that's kind of the background of where we went with why we were changing the level 3. We also decided that we wanted to introduce a level 5 and a level 6 so that people that could have a clear progression path through the NALP qualifications. So when they get to level 6, they could potentially use that towards going for an SQE if they wanted to go down that route. So we looked at the level 4 and the level 4 was big. It was huge. It had 10 units, and it was based on John Stacey Hibbert's original higher diploma for paralegals. And so it kind of goes back, and yes, it has been updated a lot, and a lot of things have been changed over the years, but this is the first time it's been completely rewritten, torn up, thrown out, and redesigned from scratch since he brought it in all those years ago. So the time was right because of all the changes. The time was also right because it meant we have the level 4 with 4 units We will have a level 5 with 4 units, a level 6 with 4 units, and it will provide that progression for our learners so that they can get to where they want to go. And then we will also be updating our level 7 for those that want to carry on. And because if they want to be a professional paralegal practitioner, it's really good to go all the way through to having the level 7, which is what we would normally term as a postgraduate qualification.
No, that's really good. Thanks for sharing that. You briefly mentioned about the single subject qualification.
Yeah.
No? I just wanted to find out why did NALP decide to keep those and how do they align with the new qualification structure?
We have kept the single subjects because we recognise that some people just want to learn one little bit of law that they are dealing with.
Yeah.
So it made sense for them to be able to, if they are just dealing with that area of law, perhaps they're in an in-house team in a particular company and they need to be able to understand, but they only need that particular bit. They don't need anything wider. Or perhaps if they're just dipping their toe and they're not sure if this is for them, and so they want to do something that's going to be a fairly quick hit. There's only going to be one assessment at the end of it, and that's it. So we kept the single unit. They're not directly relatable to the new qualification, although there's the topics and the content is perfectly relevant and everything to today's legal system, and it is all up to date and it has all been updated, etc. But it doesn't leave, you can't do like 3 different awards, say, or 4 different awards, and it be the same as doing the level 3 for certificate for paralegal technicians, because there's not what's called a rules of combination in there that would make up a larger qualification. Yes, you could do the single subject that was on the English legal system, on the introduction to law, I should say, and you would get some form of recognition of prior learning if you were then doing the bigger certificate. So if you wanted to dip your toe in and do that, but you would still need to at least do the research element that is within the new qualification, because we hadn't got a research element in the old qualification, but we have introduced that as it's such an important part of a paralegal's role.
Would you say the single subjects qualifications can be ideal for lawyers who perhaps might need a refresher?
Yes.
Or transition into a new area of law, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, so it might be also for someone that has done the certificate but doesn't need the level 4, perhaps because of what they're doing, but they want a different area. They have to specialise in a different area of law and they want something on that. But yes, anybody that is refreshing, maybe they're coming back to law for the first time in a few years. Maybe they took a time off to raise a family or something like that. And so they may even have a law degree, but perhaps the law degree is from a few years ago and they just want to refresh because they're going back in, but they're going to be doing conveyancing and they just need to update their knowledge on that particular area of law or something.
Yeah. So specifically for the new level 3 and 4 qualifications, what kind of learners are these qualifications designed for?
All of them, to be perfectly honest. The level 3 is naturally what we would call an entry level, because it does provide the foundations of legal knowledge that they might need. So, but that doesn't mean to say that it's only for 18-year-olds or someone just leaving school or anything, because in fact, that's not how that works at all. We get tend to get people who are changing careers to much later on. Yeah, it is for everybody, but then the level 4 could be for someone that perhaps has done law a while ago, started doing law and then dropped out for whatever reason, or has been working in perhaps a legal secretary or something like that, so has a reasonable understanding. If they haven't done the level 3, they can still go on and just do the level 4 if that's what they feel suits them better. But they will need to do the research bit from the level 3 just to make sure they've got, because that carries all the way through all of the levels that we're introducing. They need that research bit. It will keep coming back. So they can go straight on to the level 4 because you do have the English legal system as one of the units in there. And that gets a little deeper than the level 3 does on the introduction to law. So it's a bit more involved in it, which is why it hasn't got the research element. But we believe that that would be where most people would start. If they want to do the level 5, they need to have a level 4 or equivalent. If they want to do the level 6 when that comes in, when those two come in, then they will need the levels before to be able to go on. But so the highest they can get in on would be the level 4.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how will these updates impact learners currently enrolled in the old qualifications?
The old qualifications are still extremely valid. There's absolutely, nothing changes there. As I say, the reason that we have done this is so that those can go on and do the other levels. If they have done the old level 4 and they want to, when the new level 5 comes in, they want to go and do the level 5, we would say, yeah, that's fine. But they don't have to do a formal assessment for the research element. The centres can do their own assessment just to make sure they understand it.
Good. Yeah, you touched on the research element, but is there any other sort of advice you would give to learners who are transitioning to the new qualification structure? Anything they should consider?
I think just to read everything. That's always a good starting point because they are set out slightly differently. They also have to understand that they will have different types of assessment because they will have multiple choice. So they do have to learn more for the multiple choice because that is what's called a closed book examination. So they're not allowed anything on their desk, so that they do need to remember things for that. It's multiple choice, so it usually you see it and you go, oh yes, it's that, but they have to be aware of what multiple choice is like, and there's always a distractor and that sort of thing. I would say make sure they are absolutely certain that they are ready to take their assessment before they come to their centre and say, I want to do the assessment. They do get their one go and then a resit for free, but then they would have to pay for another resit. And they can only take it each assessment a maximum of 3 times. Absolutely read everything. Make sure they're completely up to date. Remember that certainly for the level 3 and the level 4, the workbooks contain everything they need. If there has been a change in law, we will send out an addendum. We may not update the workbooks. We may send out an addendum. If there is an addendum out there, make sure you read it and understand it. Or if you look at something and say, I'm pretty sure that changed a couple of months ago, there is probably an addendum to that will mean that we will accept either the answer as in what is in the workbook currently or the new correct answer, as it were, because we don't want to disadvantage anybody. Really talk to their centres. Their centres are there to guide them and help them. So absolutely keep a good line of communication open with the centres.
Great. So how does the new qualification structure prepare learners for roles in the legal sector, at least compared to the previous ones?
I'm going to hark back to the research now, aren't I? The research element is definitely, it has been designed to make sure that the students understand sort of what they are looking for and how they would do research and where they would go and look at it. Because that's a huge part of any paralegal's role, really. it gives them a really good understanding of the wider legal field. So it won't matter which area of law they want to specialise in, especially like the level 3, that gives them a really good grounding. At level 4, you've got the English legal system taught
Criminal and employment law and practice.
they are designed, and the way the assessments are designed, with having at level 3, you've got 20% on an assignment, which is problem based, and at level 4, you've got 40% on the assignment. And that means they have to be able to apply the law to scenarios like they would in a paralegal role. And that is the idea of that. We've never liked the idea of going in and, having a made up thing that they're supposed to do in 90 minutes.
Yeah.
That's not how it works in real life. In real life, you have a time frame to do it, and that's what we give. We give 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on level 3, level 4, to be able to do the assignment, which is more what they would do. They're allowed to go away and research it. They're allowed to go away and look it up, and that is what they will do in a real world situation.
It's really good. You actually mentioned quite an interesting point earlier on when you said paralegals are working in various sectors, like in sports industry, for example, you mentioned. It would just be good if you could just elaborate further on how career opportunities for paralegals have evolved over the years, and what kind of jobs can somebody who's just completed like a NALP level 3, 4, or level 7 qualification diploma can apply for.
I think the role of a paralegal has evolved almost beyond recognition from what it first started out as being the old managing clerks. And it's paralegals used to be seen as almost the administrative dog's bodies for solicitors and the like. They are not anymore at all. They are respected far more, and their worth is seen, and we like to think that we've had something to do with that. People who want to be a paralegal are not stuck just working for somebody else.
Yeah.
They can have their own business. They can provide their legal services directly to clients. They can also work for larger organisations. I mean, I was once on a panel at a university, and one of the people there was the company secretary of ASDA, and they had started as a paralegal, and they're now really high up. I don't know if they still are, because this is going back 2017, so I don't know if they're still there. But there are large organisations who will employ paralegals because they have the knowledge that they need them to have to do the roles. They are, yes, in sports, in fashion. They're all doing contracts, you see.
Yeah.
So that they need somebody that is going to be able to make sure these contracts are written well and written for the company's benefit. The roles are so diverse. As I say, we have air hunters, which I think is a fascinating thing when they've got to trace down, go through all the ancestry and everything and find some distant cousin, 12 times removed or something that's the closest living relative and things. I just think that's fascinating. And I've been to some of the probate research awards ceremonies, and the stories from there that internationally they end up going, the research takes them everywhere doing this. So we have cost lawyers. They tend to be, got a webinar coming up on cost lawyers later in the year, actually. They tend to be paralegals, and they very often work for a number of different firms. They'll go in for a day a week or whatever, and they'll do all the costs that are needed to be done. So that's like the crossover between the law and the finance. So many different things that paralegals do these days, and so many councils use them. The HMPPS, Her Majesty's Prisons and Probation Service, they use quite a lot of paralegals as well. The possibilities for being a
Endless.
paralegal is almost endless. It really is. I mean, and there's a lot of people I think out there that are working as paralegals that don't realise they're paralegals. So whilst we might say, oh, there's about 200,000 paralegals, I wonder if it's
Is
not
that even more?
higher. Yeah, because I wonder how many more are doing it and they don't even realise that's what they're doing.
So what would you say makes the NALP qualifications valuable to employers?
First off, being regulated, which means that they have to be of a good standard. They have to fulfill all of course, regulations. So they are as reliable as an O-level or an A-level or a B-Tech or whatever else, because it all comes under the same regulations. So they can be sure that someone that has taken that qualification has absolutely demonstrated their knowledge and abilities to be able to do that role, just the same as if they were walking in there with something that, was an A-level, say, because the level 3 is the equivalent to an A-level. Level 4 is like having done the first year of a degree. That's what those levels are sort of mapped to. Level 5, second year of a degree. Level 6, obviously, is the full sort of degree. And level 7, the postgraduate. So if someone goes in and with the postgraduate, now postgraduate is aimed at practicing. So it's about the practice of law. At that stage, you've kind of done the academics, and that's about applying it and how you would run a practice and that sort of thing. So I think they're extremely valuable for employers because they can be relied upon. They're not just a certificate that they don't know where it's from. It's, they don't know if this is a full certificate or if someone's paid 19 quid for an online thing or has taken them 4 hours to do. As I say, they know if it's got the Opqual logo on, that it's only allowed to have the Opqual logo on a regulated qualification, and that it absolutely fulfills the criteria of the Opqual regulations.
Great. So for what you said previously about there are possibly paralegals out there who are doing the work of a paralegal but don't actually know that they're a paralegal. And they may be just thinking, so why do I need a qualification then if I'm already in this role or doing something similar without one? So what would you say, like, how does a regulated qualification for now open doors for those sort of people in the legal sector already doing those sort of roles?
I think it's because when we write our CVs and we write down what we do is not necessarily what we know. And what employers tend to be looking at for what we know is qualifications.
Yeah.
So we can write, even if you write down that you are reviewing contracts or negotiating contracts for this organisation, that doesn't mean to say that a prospective employer is not going to be looking at that and saying, oh, well, that's just admin.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got, and I've got the level 3, level 4, level 5, whatever, paralegal qualification, go, oh, all right. So they're understanding what they're doing.
Yeah.
They know the law. They are doing this on the basis of they know the law. And it makes your skills and knowledge more transferable.
Mm.
It can also improve your promotion within a company. They will look and go, well, hang on, no, they have done all this studying to improve their knowledge. We want to keep them. We want to encourage this, and we want to make the most out of that. And so it gives them something to stand out against other people who may be going after the same role or something.
So I'm just looking at the future now of NALP. So how does NALP plan to continue supporting learners and professionals in the paralegal field?
We're going to be continuing doing what we're doing. We're going to be continuing to advocate, continuing with all of our articles and everything, making sure we bring as many benefits as possible, having the National Paralegal Day, celebrating paralegals, and by being maintaining our relationships with all the other legal sectors and all the other legal regulators and voluntary regulatory bodies, professional bodies, to make sure that we remain relevant and we remain part of the conversation. And paralegals remain up there in people's psyche, as it was, so that they don't forget who we are and who our members are and who we are advocating for, and just how important the role of the paralegal is to the entire legal sector and indeed the wider business sector as well. So yeah, we will be continuing to do that and continuing to be innovative with our range of qualifications, with what we are offering, and being part of the conversation on future apprenticeships and everything like that as well.
So where do you see the role of paralegals headed in the next decade?
It's difficult to say because of the changes in the legal system, the changes in the government. Every time we get a new government or something, somebody changes their mind about what they're doing about something. So it's never as straightforward. However, I can only see the paralegals becoming stronger. I hope in some way that there is some statutory regulation or statutory recognition even of paralegals, because I think it should be a protected term. I think it's not currently. I think that there should be more official government sort of recognition of the role of paralegals. Whether that will happen or not, it doesn't. Even though we've had various things like the Mason report a few years ago and all the rest of it, nothing has ever sort of come out of that so far. So we will keep our ear to the ground and keep shouting about us, and hopefully we will put us even more on the map than we are now. And we will see the recognition of paralegals that are with professional organisations such as ourselves that do hold paralegal regulated qualifications, that they are set apart from those that would perhaps want to use the term with less qualifications or experience or recognition.
Wonderful. And lastly, what advice would you give to someone considering a career as a paralegal or starting their journey with NALP?
I think attend the webinars that we hold that have interest for them. Look around our newsletter, look at previous webinars that are available for them. Speak to their centres to make sure that they are taking the right level of qualification that they require. And they need to reach out and have as a member, they are entitled to their free consultation with Amanda or myself. So they can talk to us and we can discuss their individual needs and perhaps point them in the right direction. Law is really interesting. Because mine's compliance, it's sort of the other side of the same coin, but it's interesting and it can be quite fascinating. It can be a brilliant career being a paralegal. So I say, absolutely go for it and get as much information and support and advice as you can from their centres, from ourselves, and from others that perhaps work in it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jane. We really appreciate all the information and advice you've provided. And thank you all to everyone who's listening to this episode of the Legal Navigator podcast. If you have any questions or need more information, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can send us an email at info@ltckent.com or visit our website at ltckent.co.uk. Thanks for listening.